Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a really thought-provoking source, the perception paradox by Burke.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one.
Our mission, to pull out the most vital insights about how our perception of the world and, maybe more importantly, our place in it shapes our actions.
Especially when it comes to doing what we feel is right.
Exactly.
Mm.
We're digging into why we sometimes just don't act, even when our moral compass seems pretty clear.
Uh-huh.
Get ready for some surprises, maybe a few aha moments. Burke really challenges that idea that inaction is always about lacking morals.
Right. He suggests it's often more about whether we believe we can actually do something, that sense of agency.
That's a huge reframe, isn't it?
It really is. It suggests the main hurdle for acting morally isn't always a lack of morality itself. It's more about limitations perceived or real on our agency.
It definitely helps understand things a bit more deeply.
For sure.
Okay, so let's start with the foundation book builds. He kicks off with a pretty bold idea
Yeah, it's assumption one.
that basically, underneath all our cultural layers, there's this shared, maybe innate sense of right or good, at least in, mentally and emotionally healthy people.
He calls it a universal moral imperative.
Right.
And what's so interesting is that this is his starting point. He's basically saying, look, deep down, healthy folks tend to agree on core things like empathy, justice, reciprocity, not causing harm.
So it's not about specific rules, but a kind of baseline ethical sense.
Exactly. It implies our moral compass isn't just something we learned entirely from culture. There's maybe something fundamental there, a blueprint almost.
And he does offer some evidence. He points across cultures. Like, think about harming innocent people.
Yeah, that's almost universally condemned.
It feels like there's this deep agreement on certain really big issues, this shared understanding of what's profoundly wrong.
It gives his theory a strong base. But, well, it does raise a pretty big question, doesn't it?
Like, how universal is it, really?
Exactly. Or how much is it still shaped by culture, by conditioning? I mean, sure, harming innocence is one thing, but what about, say, views on hierarchy? Or the balance between the group and the individual?
Those very wildly.
Massively. And also, what does healthy mean in this context?
What point?
Emotional trauma, systemic oppression, even neurological differences. Those could fundamentally change how someone interprets or prioritizes this so-called imperative.
Makes it a lot more complex than just saying it's universal.
Definitely more nuanced.
Okay, so for you listening, the key takeaway here might be this. If Burke's first assumption holds water, even partially, then when people don't act morally, maybe it's not because their compass is broken.
Right. The focus shifts.
It shifts from thinking they lack morals to what's limiting their ability to act, what's constraining their agency.
That's a huge shift. It moves us away from pure judgment towards understanding the barriers.
Which leads perfectly into Burke's second big assumption.
Yeah, building right on that first one. He says, okay, even with this internal moral compass.
People often don't act on it.
Right. Because they either perceive they lack agency, or in some cases, they genuinely do lack it.
This is the bridge, isn't it, between knowing and doing?
Absolutely. This is, like you said earlier, where the rubber meets the road. Burke stresses that agency is that critical link.
Without it, even if you feel that strong moral pull,
You might just stay passive or feel resigned, a bystander instead of an actor.
and he draws a key distinction there.
He does. Between perceived lack of agency, the feeling, I can't change this, even if options technically exist.
And an accurate lack of agency where there are real, insurmountable barriers, maybe systemic ones or physical ones.
Think about that worker example. Someone sees wrongdoing, but they don't report it. Why?
Because they believe they'll face retaliation.
Exactly. Even if the company has protections on paper, that belief itself becomes the barrier. Whether it's accurate or just perceived, it stops action.
It's so tricky, though, untangling the perceived from the real limitations.
Incredibly difficult. Sometimes what we perceive as a constraint is a very real risk. We're reading the situation correctly.
But other times,
Other times, yeah, we might misread things, see hostility where there's indifference or just, normal friction, and that perceived barrier feels just as real, has the same impact.
so the challenge is figuring out the true nature of the block, which our own stories about the world can easily mess up.
Absolutely. Our internal narratives are powerful.
So for you listening, it means realizing that just having good intentions or knowing what's right, well, it's often not enough.
Right. You need to look at, do people, yourself included, feel genuinely able to act?
Or is there some belief maybe accurate, maybe not, that's holding things back. It's about more than just character.
It's about capability and perception.
Okay, so with those two assumptions, the moral imperative and the critical role of agency, Burke then gives us a framework.
Yeah, a kind of step-by-step process.
It shows how our perception of the world around us and our assessment of our own agency combine to decide if we actually act on that moral urge.
And this framework is super useful because it's like a map. It moves us beyond just judging people morally.
And into practical psychology.
Kind of, yeah. It shows the internal path from awareness to action, and crucially, where that path can get blocked or derailed.
It helps pinpoint where things go wrong.
Exactly. So the framework goes something like this. First, you have your perception of the environment. How do you see things? Supportive, hostile, indifferent.
Okay, step one, perception.
Step two, interpretation. How does that perception connect to you? Are you at risk? Are you capable? Can you actually make a difference here?
So what does it mean for me?
Then, step three, agency assessment. What options do you think you have? Critically, is your potential inaction because of a real barrier or one you're just assuming is there?
Assessing your power, basically.
Right. And finally, step four, the moral response. If you perceive the environment as somewhat manageable and you feel you have some agency, some viable path,
Then the moral imperative kicks in, drives action.
but if it all feels futile or overwhelmingly dangerous,
People disengage. The moral drive gets shut down by the perception of impossibility.
precisely. And this framework has huge implications, especially for leadership.
How so?
Well, Burke suggests leaders can actively work on both sides of agency. They can boost perceived agency, maybe by highlighting success stories, showing people can make a difference, demonstrating protection for ethical actions.
Making it feel safer, more possible.
And they can also build actual agency, giving people the tools, the authority, the resources they need, removing real barriers.
So it's about perception and reality.
Both. The big takeaway here is powerful. People rarely fail to act morally just because they don't know what's right.
It's usually because they believe, rightly or wrongly, that acting won't help or will hurt them.
That belief is the gatekeeper.
But the framework itself has challenges, right?
Oh, definitely. The biggest one is how subjective every single step is.
Your perception versus mine.
Could be totally different, even looking at the exact same situation. Which means any attempt to intervene to help someone act.
It has to be tailored. Can't be one size fits all.
Exactly. You have to acknowledge how personal these assessments are. You can't just tell someone your perception is wrong.
You have to help them explore it, maybe see it differently.
Right. It requires empathy.
So for you, this framework is a reminder. Inaction isn't always a moral lapse.
Often it's rooted in that belief, accurate or not, that action is futile or dangerous.
So building agency, both the feeling of it and the reality of it, becomes the key lever.
That's the most direct way to help people align their actions with their values. It's about empowerment.
Okay, and this leads us to where Burke says things get really interesting.
Yeah, this is the why this paradox matters part. He explains how our perceptions, even if they're inaccurate, can create these self-fulfilling prophecies.
Leading to moral paralysis.
Exactly. This gets to the core of the paradox. It's our internal model of the world that drives our behavior, often more than the external facts themselves.
So if you believe something is dangerous,
You act as if it is, regardless of the objective reality. And that's why changing behavior, changing organizations, changing anything is so hard. These beliefs are sticky.
he uses that example of the employee who believes whistleblowing always leads to retaliation.
Right. That belief, whether it's based on fact or fear, just stops them. Their internal story overrides their moral sense.
And the really insidious part.
Is how these distorted perceptions reinforce themselves. Burke calls it a self-sealing loop.
Explain that loop.
Okay, so if you assume you have no agency or that the environment is hostile, what do?
You probably avoid taking risks. You don't speak up. You don't try things.
Exactly. You avoid testing your assumptions. And that inaction then becomes the proof. You think, see, nothing changed. I was right not to bother.
So the belief leads to inaction,
Which provides no new evidence to challenge the belief.
which makes the original belief even stronger.
It's a vicious cycle. Belief, inaction, no contradictory evidence, stronger belief. And this can make us overestimate risks, see enemies where there are none, read threats into neutral signals.
It traps us.
Completely.
And this connects directly to another key idea Burke brings in, the perception gap.
Yes, this is such a crucial concept. It's this often invisible challenge that fuels that self-sealing loop.
It's the gap, the misalignment between reality and how we perceive our own abilities, our environment, our agency.
And he uses that brilliant analogy. How can someone accurately judge their own literacy level if they are, in fact, illiterate?
You can't use the skill you lack to measure the skill you lack.
Precisely. Illiteracy hides itself. And Burke argues, so do other perception gaps. We often lack the reference points, the cognitive tools, the experience to even recognize what we're missing.
So people might think they're doing fine, like the Dunning-Kruger effect.
That's part of it, yeah. False confidence, I can read enough, I understand the situation, I know what I'm doing, when objectively maybe they don't. Or it could be avoidance, shame.
And this gap messes up the whole framework we just talked about.
Absolutely. It hits right at that crucial first step, perception. If your perception is skewed by this gap, the whole chain interpretation, agency assessment, action gets distorted from the start.
Wow. Okay, so for you listening, this is a really powerful insight. Your own internal narrative, possibly shaped by a perception gap you're not even aware of.
It can literally stop you from acting on your values, even when you really want to.
It's not just about what is true, but what you believe to be true, and how that belief then shapes your reality, your choices.
And potentially traps you in that self-sealing loop.
Okay, so if we're caught in these loops fueled by perception gaps, how do we get out?
Well, thankfully, Burke doesn't just leave us with the problem. He offers practical strategies, actionable stuff.
A how-to guide.
Pretty much, for individuals, for leaders, ways to actively intervene in this paradox.
These aren't just abstract ideas then.
No, they're meant as direct levers for change, real-world tactics. He outlines 4 main ones.
Let's hear them.
First, correct the perception. Sounds obvious, but it means actively providing clear, credible evidence about the true environment.
Countering the misinformation or ambiguity that lets those distorted beliefs thrive.
Exactly. Second, build micro-experiences of agency. This is huge.
Small steps.
Tiny steps. Encourage small, low-risk actions that have a chance of producing a tangible, positive outcome.
Why small?
Because those small wins directly challenge that paralyzing belief that nothing I do matters. They provide concrete, lived evidence to the contrary.
Okay, correct perception, build micro-agency. What's third?
Third is leadership transparency. Leaders have to talk openly about both the real risks and the real protections. People need to see and believe that acting ethically is actually viable and supported, not just hear slogans about it.
Got it. And the fourth?
Fourth, challenge internalized narratives. This is about introspection and dialogue.
How do you do that?
Through reflective questions like, okay, what evidence actually supports that fear you have? Is there any evidence that challenges it? And also, crucially, sharing stories.
Peer stories.
Yeah, stories from peers who took moral action and it worked out, or at least wasn't disastrous, showing what's possible through relatable examples.
Those sound like solid strategies. But what are the challenges in actually doing them?
Well, the main one is just how deeply embedded these beliefs and narratives can be. Breaking a self-sealing loop takes real, consistent effort and courage.
It's not a quick fix.
Not at all. And trust is absolutely massive. If people don't trust the source that's trying to correct the perception or assure them of safety.
And none of it works.
Right. It requires building genuine trust and psychological safety first.
So for you, this toolkit is useful for self-reflection, but also for trying to influence others, maybe as a leader or just a colleague.
Definitely. The core message is you don't need total control to act morally, but you do need to perceive the situation somewhat accurately and believe your actions can make a difference.
Otherwise, you stay stuck, not acting because you fear the environment.
And by not acting, you inadvertently help preserve the very environment you fear. That's the paradox in action.
And that self-sealing loop you mentioned, it worsens the perception gap.
It absolutely does. The inaccurate perception leads to inaction. The inaction means no corrective feedback, no new data.
So the disordered belief just gets stronger, and the gap between your perception and reality might even widen.
Exactly. It explains why some people can function with significant skill gaps, like the literacy example, and genuinely believe they're fine. Their workarounds seem to work, validating their belief because they never encounter situations that truly test the limits.
So for leaders, the sequence matters.
Hugely. Burke implies you have to first gently help people see the gap, diagnose it, maybe through safe, non-threatening discovery experiences. Then you work on building agency. You can't build agency effectively if the person doesn't even perceive the need for it or the possibility of it.
Wow, what a deep dive, truly. The perception paradox really does pull back the curtain on why acting on our best intentions can be so hard.
It's such a powerful lens. When you connect all the pieces, Burke is basically saying that Understanding and tackling that perception gap. That's the key. It's the engine driving the self-sealing loop.
And it's maybe the biggest vulnerability in our ability to act morally or even just to learn and lead effectively.
Because it masks what we don't know we don't know.
So it really underscores. It's not just about knowing what's right. It's about seeing the world clearly enough and believing enough in your own actions to actually do something.
That shift in belief, grounded in a more accurate perception, unlocks everything else.
And leaders who get good at spotting and closing these gaps.
They can unlock so much potential. Latent moral action, learning, innovation, agency for themselves and everyone around them. It's about creating environments where reality can actually be seen and acted upon.
So for you listening, as you go about your day, maybe pause and consider,
Right.
where might you have a perception gap?
Yeah, are there beliefs you hold about your own skills, about your workplace, about what's possible that might be holding you back? Even when reality might offer more options than you think.
Could you be caught in a self-sealing loop somewhere? And if you suspect you might be, what's one tiny micro-experience you could try? Just one small step to test that assumption.
Food for thought.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the perception paradox. Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning.
And keep exploring.